After 83 years, Paul McCartney finally reveals Ozzy's true nature. James Paul McCartney was born in Liverpool, England, on June 18, 1942. Paul was reared in post-war Liverpool in a working-class family that valued music. Paul learned about musical structure and melody from his trumpeter and pianist father, Jim McCartney. After his mother, Mary, died when he was 14, McCartney turned to music for comfort and expression. He learned guitar, piano, and bass guitar by himself, establishing a natural ability that would shape modern music. In 1957, McCartney met John Lennon, changing music forever. After participating with the Quarrymen skiffle group, which became the Beatles, the two became close songwriters. The band went from local fame to global superstardom after adding George Harrison and Ringo Starr. Paul, half of the Lennon-McCartney songwriting combination, wrote successes like Yesterday, Hey Jude, Let It Be, and Eleanor Rigby, demonstrating his lyrical and melodic talent. These songs, and many others, embodied 1960s and beyond culture. McCartney was the Beatles' creative force, and their influence on popular culture was immense. With albums like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Revolver, and The White Album, he led the band's musical innovation. He elevated rock music to an art form by blending classical rock, pop, and avant-garde inspirations into cohesive, emotionally moving works. Before disbanding in 1970, the Beatles redefined what a band could be and what popular music could do artistically and emotionally. McCartney flourished creatively after the Beatles broke up. He and his wife Linda McCartney formed Wings, which released chart-topping albums and hits like Band on the Run, Live and Let Die, and Jet in the 1970s. They were one of the decade's most successful rock bands, demonstrating McCartney's versatility outside the Beatles. His collaboration with Linda was a musical and personal success, as she supplied steadfast support, harmonies, and artistic inspiration until her 1998 death. As a solo performer, Paul McCartney adapted to various musical styles. He worked with many musicians, including Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, Elvis Costello, Kanye West, and Rihanna, and remained a global presence. Tug of War, Flowers in the Dirt, Flaming Pie, and Egypt Station showed his relevancy and passion for music. McCartney has always shown his versatility and remarkable talent for writing emotionally driven songs, whether singing ballads or rockers. Many consider the 1980s Paul McCartney's most difficult years. McCartney struggled personally and professionally after becoming a global sensation with the Beatles and Wings. Drug dependence, especially marijuana, was one of his biggest problems. It became known when his use increased. He was fined for marijuana possession after his arrest, which was widely covered. This arrest harmed his public image and woke him up to his life orientation. His psychological struggles were compounded by the 1980 assassination of his former Beatles bandmate and close friend John Lennon. Lennon's murder stunned the world and devastated McCartney. There was more to Lennon's death than music. McCartney lost a creative partner and lifelong friend who shaped his music. This occurrence caused him to lament and think, which influenced his creativity and public appearances. Throughout the 1980s, McCartney wrote, recorded, and performed music despite these challenges. He struggled to reclaim his commercial and critical success in this age. His albums and songs over the decade failed to attain the iconic status or sales statistics of his earlier work, and he faced intense competition from new wave, punk, and young pop singers. However, McCartney's love of music and work ethic kept him going. Even though the era felt like a downturn from his 1960s and 1970s fame, McCartney reinvented his career in the 1990s by collaborating with new artists and trying new sounds. Martin Glover, better known as Youth, the bassist for Killing Joke, was a key collaborator. Youth's experimental production and music made him an ideal McCartney collaborator. Was ready to experiment musically. They released Strawberry's Ocean Ship's Forest in 1993 as the Firemen, an electronic duo. McCartney experimented with ambient, electronic, and experimental elements on this album. It was an underground endeavor, but McCartney showed his willingness to change and develop. McCartney released Off the Ground, a rock album, the same year to reconnect with his core following. His collection of lively songs and ballads showed his enduring abilities as a songwriter and singer. It did not sell as well as his solo or Beatles albums, but fans and critics praised it, proving his persistence and relevancy in the changing music market. Despite being in his 60s, Paul McCartney kept going in the new millennium. His passion, originality, and drive for music persisted. His CDs showed his flexibility and maturity during this time. Execore Mayim debuted in 2006, a classical oratorio that showcased his non-pop/rock composer skills. A critical success, this composition displayed McCartney's long-standing passion in classical music and sophisticated arrangements. McCartney released Memory Almost Full in 2007, a mix of thoughtful words, engaging melodies, and modern production. The album's smart songwriting and return to rock and pop were well received. In 2008, he released Electric Arguments under the Fireman name, mixing rock, electronic, and psychedelic influences in a dynamic and experimental musical statement. These ventures demonstrated McCartney's capacity to reinvent himself while staying true to his heritage. In addition to music, McCartney is a humanitarian, activist, and animal rights campaigner. Longtime vegetarian, he promotes environmental sustainability, world disarmament, and animal rights. In memory of his wife, Paul founded Linda McCartney Foods, advocating meat-free and healthy living. In 1997, Queen Elizabeth II knighted him for his music and humanitarian work, which included supporting PETA, Greenpeace, and Adopt a Minefield. McCartney is personable and dominating live. Due to his tenacity, excitement, and connection with all ages, his shows draw huge crowds. He delivers joy, nostalgia, and unification to audiences with songs from his whole career, from Beatles to solo. His 2005 Live 8 performance, 2012 London Olympics performance, and historic concerts in Russia and Brazil are cultural milestones that demonstrate his global reach. As one of the world's most famous musicians, Paul McCartney's youth was filled with celebrity, travel, and adoration. McCartney met many ladies in show business as a Beatles member, solo artist, and Wings member. He had several love relationships in the 1960s, but none were as lasting as his with Linda Eastman. Paul McCartney met Linda Eastman, a talented rock musician portraitist, in 1967 during Beatlemania. He met her by chance, but their connection was immediate and deep. Linda was smart, gorgeous, and loved music and creativity like Paul. She gave him stability in a frantic world of worldwide renown. They married in a private civil wedding at Marylebone Registry Office in London in March 1969, starting one of rock's most famous and enduring partnerships. Linda had a daughter, Heather, from Paul before their marriage. Dedicated and compassionate, he adopted Heather and raised her with the same love and care as his own children. Later, Paul and Linda had Mary, Stella, and James. Like her mother, Mary became a respected photographer. Stella became a prominent fashion designer, while James became a musician like his father. The McCartney family was noted for their artistic talent and closeness. Paul and Linda's nearly 30-year marriage is unique in showbiz. Their relationship was legendary and virtually inseparable. Despite her musical inexperience, Linda toured with Paul's band Wings, providing backing vocals and keyboards. They were one another's frequent companions in personal and professional life, and their love was visible in interviews, photos, and Paul's songs. After a heroic struggle with breast cancer in the 1990s, Linda died in 1998. Paul was devastated by her passing and spoke often of her courage, love, and lasting impact on him. Paul McCartney married Heather Mills, a former model and campaigner known for her landmine victim support work after a traffic accident amputation, again in 2002. The media was hopeful that McCartney had found happiness again after his long grief period when their relationship began. They had Beatrice Millie McCartney in 2003 after a magnificent wedding at Castle Leslie in Ireland. The marriage began to suffer despite the joy of their child's birth. Public interest and scrutiny increased tensions between the pair, and their once promising relationship began to disintegrate. The 2008 divorce was public and bitter. The contentious, media-covered processes focused on economics, custody, and their relationship. Paul was dignified and reserved during the ordeal, but it was widely perceived as difficult and draining for him, especially given his prior marriage. Despite the obstacles, he actively raised his daughter Beatrice and maintained a close contact with her. Paul McCartney eventually found love again. He started dating New York businesswoman and MTA board member Nancy Shevell in 2007. Shevell, a graceful, private woman from a prominent American family, shared Paul's values of music, vegetarianism, and avoiding the tabloids. After a few years of a peaceful, steady relationship, the couple married in 2011 in a modest, meaningful ceremony at Old Marylebone Town Hall in London, where he had married Linda decades previously. Former Beatle, Wings leader, and lifetime artist Paul McCartney is in his 80s and reflecting on his life. After 60 years in the entertainment industry, McCartney is now more open in interviews and memoirs, sharing undiscovered rock history stories. McCartney finally revealed his long-held opinions of Prince of Darkness Ozzy Osbourne in a recent sit-down interview that shocked fans and industry insiders. While quite distinct in style and public persona, they had met many times at award events, charity benefits, and studio collaborations. McCartney now admits that he always admired Osbourne's raw, unapologetic personality and extraordinary endurance, even though he was diplomatic about rock and roll's darker side. He discussed Osbourne's crazy stage antics, scandalous headlines, fragility, lifelong addiction, and magnetism as a performer and human. "I think people misinterpret Ozzy," McCartney said. "He spoke with warmth and gravity. A man with a profound soul and real heart lies beneath the theatrics, biting the bat, and wild reputation. I witnessed it in his discussions about his kids and his unnoticed care for his bandmates. Survival matters in this industry, and he survived." McCartney described their only proper chat in the late 1990s backstage at a benefit concert. In a dressing room surrounded by fans, the two titans talked about family, fame, and the cost of perpetual reinvention. McCartney stated that chat made him understand Ozzy was more intelligent and grounded than people imagined. After decades, McCartney honors Osbourne as a rock legend and a figure of resilience and sincerity in a world that punishes both. He even apologized for not expressing their respect sooner. "I probably kept silent since I didn't know how people would respond. You just want to be honest at this age." Ozzy has always been a bloody legend. This poignant homage to Ozzy Osbourne adds another unexpected and extremely human chapter to the narrative of two men who impacted music in vastly different but equally significant ways as McCartney contemplates his life and legacy.